Lots to talk about with regard to I was going to say potential coronavirus vaccine, but it's not potential. Bill Gates, as you know, is spending $100 million plus on developing the vaccine. And lots of different companies are racing to try to get the vaccine that's going to be the main one. And there may not be only one that comes out, but a lot of very important people are funding these projects. And as you know, people are interested in a vaccine. And that raises a host of questions, and it raises some dilemmas for people like you and me. So let me just tick off a few of the things that I think are part of this conversation. Then I want to get into a recent poll that was taken asking Americans to what level are they willing to say, yes, they're interested in a coronavirus vaccine when it comes out. We'll get into that. But first, though, what are some of the impinging issues here? Number one, as you know, as you've heard a lot about if you've listened to the Patrick Madrid Show for any length of time, there are various companies out there who are seeking to come up with a viable vaccine that can be brought to market in mass quantities so that people can be vaccinated soon. Now, any number of these vaccine development projects are relying upon the stem cells from aborted babies, so fetal stem cell research, and this is nothing new, and they argue that this is a way to save a lot of lives, and we've already got these stem cells, so we might as well use them. The problem is you can gain the same level of success by using placenta stem cells, for example, that doesn't involve the murder of an unborn child, which happens in abortion. You can also, as we found out with some of these vaccine companies, make use of the stem cells from other organisms. Now, one Sophie, I'm trying to remember, I don't have the documentation in front of me, but it's another company that has derived the COVID-19 vaccination from insects. And I don't care how many bugs get ground up into powder or however they do this. I don't care about bugs. And that would be a morally viable way to get a vaccine that is not compromised by being tainted with the derivation from aborted baby stem cells. So that's one big dilemma that is looming. And it may happen, and I've predicted on the program that we very well could find ourselves in a situation where you're being told by the government that you have to be vaccinated. And what happens if the only vaccination available to you is the one that is coming from aborted baby stem cells? What are you going to do? I've already said before, and others are saying it as well, I'm not the only one, that I won't do that. I won't. I mean, if it's forced upon me, I can't help that. But if I have a free choice in the matter and the government, quote unquote, says you have to be vaccinated and you have to be vaccinated with this vaccine, and this vaccine happens to be tainted and morally compromised because it was derived from the stem cells of aborted babies, I'm not going to accept that. Now, what penalties might accrue to me, I don't know. And I sure don't like the idea of being penalized for saying I don't want that. I mean, where does it say in the U.S. Constitution that you have to be vaccinated, or that the government can say that you have to be vaccinated? And I realize that this is the stuff of courtroom dramas, and I'm not a lawyer, so all I can do is just say, I think this is going to be one of those big dilemmas coming for you and me in the not-too-distant future. Second dilemma. What happens if they say, we got a vaccine, and by the way, you can opt for the one that doesn't have aborted baby stem cells as part of the research. You can have that one if you want to, but you have to have it. It's not optional. You have to get vaccinated. That's a dilemma. I mean, even if you, like I'm okay with vaccines. I'm not against vaccines. I'm fine with vaccines. I think vaccines, it's been demonstrated conclusively, have saved the lives of countless hundreds of millions of people, billions perhaps. So I'm not in any sense against vaccines. I benefited from vaccines. But what if the government says you have no choice in the matter? You have to get the vaccine. That's a different kind of story there, because it strikes me as going to the heart of the question of, do you have certain freedoms that the government is not able to interfere with? Now, if you go into the military, you've given up that freedom. You're going to get vaccinated. If you go into the military, there's that day when you all line up and there are doctors on each side of you and you walk the gauntlet and they're jabbing your arm left and right. And that's just the nature of the thing because you've signed up for the military. So you don't have that right anymore. But if you're not in the military and Uncle Sam is not asking you to go fight a war or to live in close quarters with other service people, and you don't have the necessity of having the vaccines, is it really something that the government can force upon you? And I foresee this too looming as a real problem. Did you see the video on TikTok over the weekend that shows, this is in New York City, I believe, and it shows people in a grocery store shouting, get out of here, leave here. And they're using F words and all kinds of stuff because somebody in the store didn't have a mask. I mean, it was verging on violence. And we're talking about just like average people, middle-aged people, younger people, and whoever the person was, I didn't get a good glimpse of whoever that was who wasn't wearing a mask, is basically being chased out with everything short of being physically beaten. And I wonder if that person had decided to stay in that grocery store without the mask, if it might not have come to that. And the mood in the country, let's just say, hasn't been enhanced by the last 3 months of being locked down in our homes. And a lot of people are really up in arms about freedoms and things like that. So this is the second dilemma. What happens when the government says you're going to get a vaccination? You're going to get it. It doesn't matter. You want it, you don't want it, doesn't matter. We don't care. What we're looking for is herd immunity. And I realize that technically that's something different from vaccinations. But in any case, we want our people to be safe. And you're not going to be able to go into a grocery store. You're not going to be able to get on an airplane and fly and go see grandma or go for a business interview, a job interview. You're not going to be able to go to your child's high school or college graduation. You're not going to be able to send your kids to school if you don't have this vaccination. Sorry. Okay, so that's another dilemma. Third dilemma, when we're looking at the vaccine. Third dilemma is this. As you've heard me talk about before, there is research being done. I quoted to you, a couple of weeks ago, from the MIT Technology Review, MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And they had a very interesting article about the ways in which the process is being perfected so that in any given vaccine, but this is the one that most people are thinking about right now, the COVID-19 vaccine, that it can be administered in such a way that it actually marks you. It puts an invisible tattoo on your body that can be scanned and read so that if you're going into a ball game, you want to go watch the Dodgers, you want to go see the Diamondbacks, you want to go do some other big public event, when you walk through, it'll scan you. And if you don't have it, you don't get in. Now, that's an eventuality that I foresee. But the main thing is, in this dilemma, what about a vaccine that marks you? And the way it's described, according to Massachusetts Institute of Technology, that it would be a series of sugars and proteins, and I don't really understand how it all works, and that when the vaccine is administered, for example, maybe with a patch, that this invisible dye that is transmitted through these crystals, through these sugars and proteins, etc., that it remains in your body, perhaps only for a time, maybe a few years, but it could be made to be indelible. And that is now a mark on your body. And I know what you're thinking because I'm thinking the same thing. What does it say in the book of Revelation? Chapter 14, for example, that this mark was given on the forehead or the hand, great and small. And if you didn't have this mark, you can't buy or sell, you can't go and do. This sounds a lot like that to me. And you know me, I'm not a scaremonger. I don't spend great quantities of time worrying about things like that. But this has me concerned because we now live at a time and in a place surrounded by unbelievably powerful technologies that can not just administer things like this, but track and control on the basis of those kinds of marks. And so just to not put too fine a point on this, picture yourself, you say, you know what, I'm not getting that vaccine. And you wiggle and you dodge and you wind up not getting the vaccine. And then the next thing you know, when you try to buy a plane ticket to go somewhere, they say, we need the proof of your vaccination. Well, I don't have one. Well, I'm sorry, you can't go. What? I just, I have a business meeting in Chicago. I got to go. No, I'm sorry, you can't go because the law says you don't have the vaccine. You don't fly. What about the grocery store situation? Everybody's got to buy groceries. And so on and so forth. It's already happening in China. It's already happening. It's been happening for years now with their social credit system. We've talked about that endlessly on this program for years. And it's always been over there. Those poor people in China under the yoke of the communist Chinese government, the godless communist people who run that place, they are, just picture a boot standing on the neck of every Chinese citizen. That's what it's like for them. Everything is registered and monitored and controlled. And if people get out of line, sometimes they disappear. So those are my three scenarios. I'm sure there are others, but those are the three that come to my mind with regard to a coronavirus vaccine. Now I'll turn my attention to this Reuters Ipsos poll that just came out. And according to this poll, 25%, thus far anyway, 25% of Americans have little or no interest in taking a coronavirus vaccine should one become available in the near future. The poll was taken the 13th through the 19th of May. Now, experts who were quoted, they say they were surprised because they anticipated higher interest in a vaccine. Like, wouldn't everybody want a vaccine? How come somebody wouldn't want a vaccine? So Dr. William Schaffner, no relation to William Shatner, different person altogether. William Schaffner, he is an infectious disease expert at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. He says it's a little lower than what I thought would be with all the attention to the vaccine. I would have expected somewhere around 75%. Hesitant interest may have to do with the speed at which the vaccine candidates are being developed, which may heighten fears over safety. Typically, testing for safety and success of potential vaccines takes up to a decade, but the government is pushing for a coronavirus vaccine that could be available by the end of this year, so within 6 months or so. That seemingly rushed approach has led more than 40% of respondents to say they believe a vaccine would be riskier to their health than the virus itself. Nearly half of the respondents to this Reuters Ipsos poll, nearly half of them said that they had little to no interest in the vaccine, and they were concerned with the speed at which it's being developed. In other words, do you want to go in for, would you go to a dentist that advertised, turbo high-speed dentistry? What? Turbo high-speed dentistry? No, I don't want that. Well, why not? You get in and out faster. Yeah, but he's likely to make a mistake. If it's turbo high-speed dentistry, would you want to go in for turbo high-speed LASIK on your eyes? No. Why? Well, because I want them to slow it down. I don't want them to mess me up. I want them to slow it down and do the job right. So when you've got what appears to be, in some cases, kind of turbo high-speed vaccine research, which in one sense is understandable because people are freaking out about the coronavirus. Is it likely that maybe some, mistakes could happen, or that maybe because we're rushing this to market as quickly as possible that some corners might be cut? And maybe those corners are there for a reason, and some of the red tape is there for a reason. These are all things that have got the 25% of the people who were polled saying, no, I don't want to do that. Now, I'm going to be really interested in seeing whether that number goes up or down as we get into the time when the vaccine starts becoming available. Will the number 25% go up and more people will say, nope, I don't want it? Or will that number go down because there will be maybe federal and state and local restrictions placed upon people who don't get the vaccine? What about fines? What about, if you're a professional person, a CPA or a lawyer, or you have some other capacity that involves licensing, you don't get relicensed if you don't get vaccinated? That could happen. So what do you think about this? Where do you stand on this issue? So if they rolled out the vaccine, if Dr. Fauci steps out of the medical van in front of your house tomorrow, syringe in hand, and of course the necessary cotton swab with alcohol, and says, okay, I got your vaccine, will you take it? If so, why? If not, why not? And I totally understand that a lot of people are saying, of course I'll take it. I want the vaccine. There are some who are saying, no, I don't. But I'm interested in every point of view on this issue.
For more of The Patrick Madrid Show, visit relevantradio.com/Patrick.